Hey, this is Jason with Interventional Wellness, and I've never done a reaction video before, but there were so many crazy takes over the Will Smith slap that I just felt I had to try and set things straight. Obviously, as everyone knows, from this moment, you can see Will Smith was not upset at the joke as the husband of his wife. Regardless of alopecia, the G.I. Jane 2 joke, he, as the husband, thought it was fine. So everyone that came after the slap to support him and to be like, oh, such a great idea, let's refer to Will, where at that moment he didn't think it was that serious again as the husband. Obviously, his wife didn't take it as well. And then that's kind of what led to this, iconic moment, um, which we're going to kind of skip over. He gets up at this point. And that's really unfortunate because that then created this hellfire storm across the world of was it justified, was it not? And of course it's not. Violence, especially in response to a joke, is never justified, ever, because obviously that leads into, well, can we now assault if we're offended? And obviously the answer is no. And basically, how the law works, as this video will get into, is especially in the case of assault and many other types of crimes, it's up to the person who is affected to decide, should I forgive this person? Or should I, file charges? Should I put them in jail? Should I seek damages, etc., etc.? So then, for everyone else out there who felt that justice wasn't served, it was because Chris Rock was the one who decided not to file charges. But what is very interesting is when the slap happened, even the producer of the Oscars thought it was a bit. And we'll just check this out real quick.
PD go arrest and remove Will Smith from that theater that night.
That's an absolute fact. The LAPD made it clear we will do whatever you want us to do, and one of the options is that we will go and arrest him right now. They were saying, this is battery, we will go get him. We are prepared. We're prepared to get him right now. You can press charges, we can arrest him.
It's crazy. Will Smith could have been in jail that night.
Action? And he said no.
The Oscars producer told ABC News, at first, he thought Will's slap was staged.
I said, did he really hit you?
And you could tell Will held back a little bit.
He looked at me and he goes,
just from a body mechanics point of view. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Just because he's not leaning forward. Obviously, it was assault, but there was something inside of Will that didn't want to fully go through with this, which we'll get to in a second. Because obviously he was wrong, and he let down people across the world as a celebrity. He really shot his speech in the foot that he had prepared and rehearsed later of wanting to be a light, that we'll get to shortly. But you could see how conflicted he is, because in this moment he's committing assault, but he's not leaning forward into the punch. He's not really trying to cause harm. So there's a lot going on under here, and I believe is kind of interesting to kind of dig in a little bit more than the obvious that he slapped Chris.
I said, did he really hit you? And he looked at me and he goes, yeah. He goes, I just took a punch from Muhammad Ali.
Jeez.
After the incident, what happened to the energy in the room?
Sucked completely out of it.
And that sucks for a producer of the Oscars, because the number one thing that you want as a producer of an event like this is for nothing to go wrong. And mind you, this is a room full of people who are used to the phrase of the show must go on. I've done a lot of background work, which is nothing. It was a lot of fun. There's amazingly dedicated extras out there who were, under a lot of pain, but wouldn't go up to the AD necessarily and be like, I'm not feeling so well. Can I just step out? And they're like, because often you're in a matching shot, but this is a room of people that are utmost professional, sometimes to the point of, I don't want to say insanity, but where they might check out of what's considered humane in a lot of situations, but also, to be fair, in many situations across corporate America. So this is a room where everyone just wants the show to finish. It's not, which kind of shows that they are in need of a reality check, because they should be able, as we've learned catastrophically in recent history, that the old ways of just going on despite what's going on, despite what safety issues have been raised, despite what assaults have been committed, does not work. And, you know, celebrity Hollywood especially does need to try to remain a source of inspiration, which is nice because many other professionals that get rich or wealthy, they could care less. I think it's at least nice that celebrities across the world fight to remain an inspiration for the rest of us. Obviously, this does a lot of damage to that, especially with the awkward speech he gives shortly.
Packer claims at one point it looked like Academy leaders were going to forcibly remove Will Smith after he refused to leave.
I said, Chris Rock doesn't want that. I said, Rock.
Now, there's a lot of miscommunication there. I mean, that producer, I think more than anything, he was just afraid of something going wrong, because that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. All Chris Rock did communicated with the LAPD is that he didn't want to press charges, but it appears to me like this producer just was so afraid and so stressed of his show going awry that I feel he wasn't willing to, accept what was on his plate. And what he needed to do as the producer was to remove Will from the Oscars and to either he or a representative come up to say, as, the Oscars, as whatever, we cannot condone violence and we have asked Will to step out. We are reviewing blah, 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 and then go on. But I can't say that if I was in his shoes that I wouldn't have wanted to have just hid in a hole and prayed the rest of the night could go on. And then we get to, unfortunately, a lot of crazy support, like people saying, he's a king for defending his family. Like, no, you're condoning violence at this point. You were, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you're now condoning violence from anything from being offended to like elections and so on. Like, no, it was categorically anyone on the left or the right, we can never condone violence, like, obviously. And all the people that did should be ashamed of themselves. Because again, back in the beginning of this video, her husband, who knew what she went through better than anyone, didn't think that joke was inappropriate. And even if it was, that still wouldn't condone violence. And Jada, on Instagram, she later posted, "This is a season for healing, and I'm here for it." And I mean, while my first reaction is I want to laugh at that, I think there's far more truth to that than I think anyone realizes, that we'll get to shortly. So then naturally, chaos hit the fan. It's going viral, and a lot of people are giving their takes. And this is also a very incorrect take by Joe Rogan, who I normally find very interesting and informative. Might not always be the strongest on fact checking, but to be honest, neither am I.
Chris Rock said one of the most mild jokes ever.
It was pretty mild.
Jada
I thought
Pinkett is bald. Apparently, I didn't know this. I found out after the fact.
Right, and he goes on to say, like, that Chris gave the most mild joke ever, and then Will assaults him for it. It wasn't about the joke. Anger, rage, violence is, by definition, usually never based on the thing that triggered it. If there is anyone out there that when they finally lose it and explode and they're able to only respond to the last thing that stimulated them exactly with the amount of force or anger or wrath that one thing is needed, please write a book. But this whole other angle of takes of it was just that it was a mild joke, because obviously, one, it doesn't matter how mild or not it was, but it's kind of sad to me how, as a society, we become more about outrage, about anger, about demanding justice, about demanding whatever, even though justice was technically served when Chris Rock says, "You know what? I'm going to forgive him. I'm not going to press charges." If Chris Rock had decided to press charges and he got away with it, that would be a whole other matter. That would be worth a lot more outrage. But it's not just about the violence that was committed that night or the assault that was committed that night, but we as a society, in my opinion, need to get better at realizing, like, holy crap, that person's in pain. Like, what in the world? Like, Will Smith, for the majority of his career, his life has been a very positive influence, has been there for his fans, has had Instagrams and YouTubes, and although there's been a lot of cringe moments, like his son saying, I'm more of a mama's boy, because when I'm on set, my dad will push me towards death, which I think I have coming up. There's a lot of kind of cringe and crazy and questionable stuff there. But just because, if, we disagree, if someone's across the aisle, or if someone has a lot of cringe moments, it doesn't mean we can't learn from the positive stuff that they say, even if sometimes we send that to them and say, hey, you should try living by this, even if it's their own words. And we have, other celebrities that are correctly condoning it.
He's lucky he didn't get his kick, particularly after the event was over. If not by Chris Rock, to the fellas he had there with him. I mean, Denzel and Bradley Cooper and Tyler.
But then it's kind of crazy to go to the other extreme. Like, he's lucky he's not getting his ass kicked. Like, we all need to calm down. And again, just like allow the police to do their thing, the LAPD to do their thing, allow justice to take place. And obviously he should have been removed, not necessarily from the academy that day, but at least from the building. And then you get other very interesting takes like this.
We have heard from our moral betters, gay. We've heard from our moral betters about ribbons for Ukraine. We've heard about from our moral betters about the pay gap as they receive their thousands of dollars.
Like, tying this into Ukraine, and I'm not that caught up on the outrage of necessarily supporting Ukraine or not. I heard Lauren Southern, I believe, saying that she would laugh at people who would like display a flag on their pages if they didn't really check for themselves the truth about the war. Now, while I agree that there is a lot of stuff out there that's hard to find the truth necessarily in an age where each side of the aisle is becoming more and more extreme, and as an independent, my belief is that it's not about left versus right, it's about us versus stress, and whatever you are, be a good one. But then this moment, this very unfortunate moment that's obviously based on a lot of pain and based on a lot of history, I just find it crazy how, some commentators will then try to tie it into other propaganda or things that have nothing to do with it, like Ukraine. Like, come on, man. Like, that's just insane.
In swag. We've heard Mitch McConnell jokes, but all of this led up to Chris Rock making a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, Jada Pinkett...
Yeah, that's just unhelpful to a society. Like, saying that all of basically celebrities and the left and trying to tie into the extreme woke movement, which is not woke, which we can get into elsewhere on debates or whatever, but saying that all that is now leading up to this moment where Will Smith is being a hypocrite, no, there is no rhyme or reason for this moment. Is in all sense a tragedy, a very unfortunate moment that is not a conspiracy theory. It is not. If anything, yes, it does make celebrities look worse. It does hurt celebrities' overall voice, and Will and his family is going to have to really figure out how to come together with this, and how to really look in the mirror with this, and how to really, figure out how they're not just going to repair things with, apologies that they've given out, but how they're really going to take a look in the mirror and make some deep changes. That started about 5 years ago. This video shows some of the pain that was under the curtain, and that majority of the commentators out there have missed, and why, I don't know. But this is, I believe this is her podcast, like Red Table Talk or something, where at this point, she had an affair with someone for up to years, it seems. And on this show, it appears they're having her and Will are having this face to face discussing this, and their words are very resolved to me in a way that reflects therapists they had each seen. And I just want to give you this before we watch this, because Will comes from a very like grounded place, like, hey, you should admit what you did and just apologize and let's move forward. And she comes from in Los Angeles, there are a lot of fake healers, so to speak, and she is seeming to come from a place of one of these fake healers, where, you know, hey, you weren't cheating, you were doing a healing thing, it's all good, man, kind of a thing. And you'll kind of see where it gets into. But one more thing to keep in mind before we watch this one real quick, is at the very end of this, Will says, well, first thing I'm going to do is get you back. What's heartbreaking to me is this whole interview happened after she cheated on him, after all this healing and whatnot, and he still didn't even know if they were a thing. So let's check this out.
Hell of a journey with me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
You've been on a hell of a journey with me.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
they're
know, there's
cutting it out.
people's feelings involved.
Right. Right.
You know, it's healing that needs to happen.
It's a cut down version, but for the sake of time, it's just hilarious because she's, you know,
Absolutely. So
all
what happened, Jada?
smiling.
Okay.
Famous question, but she's all smiling and happy, like as if nothing was wrong. I mean, have some humility. The look on his face right here, like you can see how much, like that's not a happy face. Like has to be clear to most people. Like he's smiling, but he's hurt inside.
Hey, so I think it was about 4 years ago, started a friendship with August. And we actually became really, really good friends. And it all started with him just needing some help.
Poor guy.
You know, me wanting to help his health, his mental state. And we
Because apparently he was suffering from being addicted to opioids, or I believe, or something, and I do believe that she genuinely did want to help this guy, but either you are helping someone as a therapist role, or you're sleeping with them. You don't mix it. You don't, because for a million reasons, but also whenever you take on a therapy role, whenever you're showing someone empathy and being there for them, there's something can occur called transference, where they will sort of project the image of love or partners or whatnot onto you. And if you take advantage of that, then you're a really shady person, essentially. And a lot of people will try to use this to try to get into people's pants, which is also equally just wrong. Like, be there for someone for the sake of being there for them. And if you're not married or in a relationship, and if something blossoms from that, great. But don't just be there for people, just, you know, obviously to sleep with them. But in her case, she's trying to help this guy get off of drugs, but also muddied the waters. You know, and there's this bigger concept, this bigger talking point that everyone's missing, of the fact that we've had divorce rates of 50% in this country for a long time. You know, around 80% of Americans are stressed, and we're losing grips of what it's like to hold on to our love, our relationships. You know, there's much bigger things happening here. And like, as we get through this video, you'll see that it becomes worse, you know, in my opinion, than the cheating that she had already done. But they were not doing well as a couple, and it makes it worse when someone doesn't take responsibility, which we might as well jump into.
We found all those different resources, you know, to help pull them through. And from there, you know,
Whoever did
you and
these
I
quotes.
were going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
That particular point in time, it was indefinite.
Yeah. I really felt like we could be over. You
Yeah,
know?
no.
So, and it sounds like this is even before the cheating, because he says, and then what did you
And
do?
We were
over. And then what did you do, Jay?
Right, so they're already struggling as a relationship, and as we go on our site, you know, stress is the main driving force that separates most people that will turn loving couples into warmongers against each other. Because, as just a quick summary, stress will shut down our ability to listen. It's fight or flight. It was made for combat, not love. And most of us are stuck in perpetual fight or flight, which we'll get into deeper in other videos. But it shuts off our ability to listen, to reason. It increases based on clinical trials and studies and research. It increases our violence, our quickness to anger, quickness to judgment, and our inability to heal, grow, and learn. And she admits later she had insecurity problems and issues and other things. So you already had this relationship that did not learn its lesson. And unfortunately in our society, if we don't learn how to handle something the correct way, as we do our best on our website to help with, we begin to look for unusual solutions, and that's what then generally tends to lead to this world of cheating, to this world of pain. And until they as a couple actually address the pain between them, until she takes responsibility, I don't want to say anything unkind about her because I don't want to increase her insecurity, but she needs to I don't want to say man up because I don't want to offend a lot of people, but she really needs to look at in herself. She really needs to take responsibility and own up for her own insecurities, and because otherwise, I'm worried about Will, as much as I was worried about Robin Williams, and because the growing amount of backlash that's now hitting Will, based on pain that's been building for quite a while, it's not going to help. And I believe that we as a society have the power to either push Will to the breaking point, or maybe, just maybe, as a society, we take a step back from the outrage culture and we start getting a little more interested in healing, for lack of a better word. But yeah, here he is, just saying, all right, well then what did you do?
Well, I think from there, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement.
I think you need to say clearly what happened.
Now that to me speaks as, like I said before, things that his therapist asked him to say. That sounds like a very reasonable thing for any therapy session. Hey, you need to get her to own up to it. And let's see, how her and whatever healer that she has supported her with.
And I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
Hey, that's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes.
An entanglement.
Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship.
That's what I said. No.
Absolutely.
We decided that we were going to separate for a period of time, and you
that
go
did
figure out
separate.
how to make yourself happy.
I was in a lot of pain, and I was very broken.
And I don't blame Will, because she's saying, I'm not happy, which we automatically take as being we're not enough when we're cheated on. But it doesn't mean that at all. It just means they're either it's they're insecure and they weren't able to deal with their own stress, their own insecurities, and without a proper solution, anyone becomes drawn to unusual solutions of any kind. For others, it's often obsessive video games, or alcoholism, or drugs, and so on and so forth.
Now, in the process of that relationship, I definitely realized that you can't find happiness outside of yourself.
You make cheating sound so profound, babe. So she's talking from a point where she was I wasn't feeling happy. I went to see someone else to see if they could make me happy, which in a way is kind of blaming that person. Part of fight or flight, especially painful self-preservation, is we feel our survival is at stake, which is going to include projection and blaming and whatnot. But even blaming and even attacks, I would argue, as a second-degree black belt, even those are rarely ever 100% personal, and usually based on their own projections. And her profound journey started with finding some happiness, just getting recognition from the person she's cheating with. But that's easy in love. It's easy to get that dopamine release when someone is just recognizing us. But even that hits homeostasis, or basically what we accept as normal, or our body accepts as normal. And we find that depression we once had before we began everything. So she's saying, man, I cheated and that still didn't bring me happiness. Hence Will's frustration of take responsibility for your happiness and stop trying to find these unusual solutions, hopefully before it makes him do something crazy in front of millions of people.
And luckily enough, you and I were also going through a process of healing in a much different manner. I would
During that time, launched into an interaction with August. What do you feel like you were looking for?
I just wanted
honest
to
question.
feel good. It had been so long since
But that's
I
a blame.
felt good. And
Husband, now I got to be with you
Internal
at the press
scream
conference
intensifies.
while you tell the world about your transgressions.
well,
Like I love my baby. I'm gonna stand by my baby no matter what.
I definitely understand
love, his dedication is
why it would look
admirable.
that way
Still
or
to this
feel
point,
that
he
way. But
doesn't
I
know
actually
that they're
don't look at
together
it as a
again.
transgression at all. Through that particular journey, I learned so much about myself and was able to really confront.
Man, that part gets me every time. That's like, I don't know, pathologic or something. Like, she needs a different therapist who's able to help her own up to some amount of responsibility, both for her own self, but also for clear things that she does wrong, to openly say to your partner that you cheated on. Like, I don't see it as a transgression. That's a low blow, especially when you essentially engage in victim blaming of, hey, I hadn't been happy for a long time. I was just trying to get happy. Like, no, that's you not able to handle, your own stress and depression and insecurities in a more formal manner, and not just talking therapy and whatnot, but taking responsibility for it. Anything we don't take responsibility from, we're not going to be able to learn the correct lessons from. So at this point in the video, like, we just know that, like, at this, Will is guaranteed to have a future of further heartbreaks and
But
blaming.
a lot of emotional immaturity, emotional insecurity,
she was-
and I was
okay.
really able to do some really deep healing. It was really a joy to just help heal somebody.
Yeah. Because I wasn't
So
sure I was ever
selfless.
going to speak to you again.
I know.
Yeah, like
I don't.
the fact that I'm speaking to you again is a miracle.
It is
I
a
don't want to go through
miracle.
this no more.
Yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
either.
Yeah,
Hoping that's
I'm gonna
putting
get
a
you
pause
back
on this.
first, and then
You're going to get me back. I think you got me back. I think you...
All this
I
time,
think we're good
she
on
never
that,
communicated to him off camera that
I wish.
they were back. That's how it happened, as an aside.
I wish that wasn't the case.
And he's trying to be like, I hope this is the end of this. And she's like, yeah. But she didn't take responsibility. So that just makes you worry about their future. And then, like, a year later, she's opening them up about their sexual life, which is,
You
I would
expect
say,
your partner
inappropriate.
to know, especially when it comes to sex.
Right.
It's like, well, if you love me, you should know.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you love me,
You should be able to read
you
my
should
mind.
read my mind.
Yeah.
Jada Pinkett.
I mean, that's just awkward. Like, that's between you and your husband. And mind you, I haven't been able to find anything that shows that you took responsibility for the time that you cheated, or necessary for the relationship. And obviously the family has been struggling and having issues. And to openly basically say, yeah, he's not necessarily pleasing me. I mean, he should know by now or whatever, and then Will Smith came out and he's like, hey, no, we're each communicating to the best of our ability or whatever. That's not necessarily helping with his healing. So we have this whole world of pain behind this man, and full dedication to his wife. As we saw in the first video, he was okay with the joke until she gave her face. So now this guy knows what he did was wrong, and when he slapped, he wasn't leaning into the slap, he was leaning back. He was defending his wife, but internally conflicted, in basically a moment of anguish. And I'm not justifying, like, violence is not okay, and I do believe it was, I don't know with Chris Rock denying charges, I don't know what level of repercussion he deserved, but at the very least, not getting his Oscar that night, if not at all, I believe at that point it probably should have gone to the next person. I believe it still should go to the next person. But now, with all that in mind, he's now having to give a rehearsed, prepared speech that they all prepare ahead of time about wanting to be a light, about wanting, to do God's work, about wanting to do all these things, knowing 100%, just like all of us, that he now looks like a complete idiot, given that he just assaulted a man over a joke that he himself thought was fine.
I know to do what we do, you got to be able to take abuse. You got to be able to have people talk crazy about you.
I mean, I
In this
don't know what
business, you
else
gotta be
was
able to
going on
have
beyond this, like
people
paparazzi or whatever.
disrespecting you. And you got to smile and you got to pretend like that's okay.
I feel like part of
I
that
want
was
to apologize to
ad-libbed.
the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow
But, like, obviously he
nominees.
can't
Um,
apologize. He's still in defend the wife mode, and he's still hurt. And I think he did actually
This is-
believe that Chris Rock was attacking him, and I do believe that was part of a trigger, but a small part. And I think he was wrong there to put any amount of blame on that. Like, I fully believe he knows
is
better
a
than that.
beautiful moment, and I'm not crying for winning an award. It's not about winning an award for me. It's
We
about
know you're not crying about the
being
word,
able to shine light on
which you
all of the
know
people,
you now
Tim
can't do.
And Trevor and Zach and Sanaya
We
and Demi.
know that you
Ingenue,
know
and the
that
entire
that
cast
moment.
and crew of King Richard and Venus and Serena, the entire
They're trying
Williams
to bring it
family.
back up, trying to make it positive. Everyone in the audience is still like shell shocked. Everyone in the audience, they're not applauding his violence, and I believe, that they probably shouldn't have applauded at all. But whenever we, as human beings, I feel we have this natural phenomena of when things go down and there's that uncomfortable silence or whatever, or the uncomfortable energy in the air, we generally want nothing more to put it behind us and to move forward. But obviously, as celebrities, they don't have that choice. But again, it was the producer who made the mistake this night of not taking Will off the stage. He claims he did, but he also claims that Chris said he didn't have to, and there's some mistruths there. Everyone in the audience generally trying to support someone for battling with their emotions, I don't think is a crime. I don't think makes all of Hollywood look like a bunch of bigots and hypocrites. Because, honestly, I'd be the same thing. I'd want to talk to them aside and be like, hey, I applauded for you, but dude, I want to make sure you're taking some serious responsibility for
Art
this.
imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things. Being able to love
hits
and
it on
care
the
for my
head.
mother, my family, my wife.
There's a lot of love, a
I'm
lot
taking
of
up too much
pain
time.
behind all of this.
Thank you
Oof.
for this
That smile,
honor.
man.
Thank you for this moment. And thank you on behalf of Richard and
Is
Oracene,
it something
entire
about the smile?
Williams
Just,
family.
I mean, I could just be
Thank you.
reading into it.
Hope the
things,
Academy
but
invites me back. Thank you.
yeah, you better hope they invite you back. And then we get to crazy takes.
For the first time, comedian Chris Rock breaking his silence after being slapped by Will Smith.
And I appreciate the Young Turks every now and then. I appreciate media from many different channels, actually. Because I do believe it's important for us to get a better view of what other people's voices are. But this is just a way off take, and they go into the same thing of, like, obviously violence is not condoned.
And he later
far as the speech
accepted
goes,
an Academy Award for Best
should not
Actor.
have happened.
So in it, he had a bunch of interesting quotes. This is from his acceptance speech. He said, "Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family. In this time in my life, in this moment, I am overwhelmed by what God is calling on me to do and be in this world." He says,
Anna,
go ahead, Cenk.
Let me just interrupt there for a second. There's two parts of that bothered me. One is he framed his assault as defending his family. Yes, but in a way that massively crosses the line. But more importantly, there he says, that God is calling on him to do this? No.
I do agree that was ambiguous, but I believe they're talking about what he said on stage, and not his apology later. So yeah, I do believe he ad-libbed the Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family, and at that moment he's still in protect wife mode, which is not condoned, which is not cool, and they are right to call him out on that. But I think this is now part of more of his prepared speech. I'm overwhelmed by what God is calling on me to do. And overwhelmed, I think, is the correct word. And I don't think he's saying God called on me to slap Chris Rock. I feel that this was part of his prepared speech where he's saying that he feels this overwhelming stress or even a burden to try to be a light for others, but then crying, realizing how hypocritical this looks. Probably, I don't know if he was processing how much of a hypocrite he would make the entirety of Hollywood look, at least momentarily. But no, he was not saying there that God made him slap Chris. And then you have Jim.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
That take is fair because he never should have gone onto the stage. Whether or not people should have applauded him is questionable. But I'd say even then, he's missing the human factor at play, which does not, again, justify anything. But all of Hollywood is not, that doesn't make all of Hollywood now, crap or whatever. It was unfortunately, the producer was not prepared mentally for things going wrong. And it's going to affect him. It's going to affect what he's a producer of in the future. His fear of things going wrong alone led to his inaction, which alone is going to lead to a reduction in his stature as a producer. So I find it very fortunate. Jim is right of calling out the Academy, but more specifically should be calling out that producer for not yanking Will off the stage and for not giving the Oscar to the next runner-up, which is something they're not prepared for and something they should. But to say that this discredits all actors is not fair, because a lot of them do try to share. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know about that many oil tycoons who are like, keep thinking positive. And yes, obviously celebrities have a lot of insecurities and they are not perfect people. At least a lot of them are trying. And could they do a better job? Yes. Should we hold them accountable? Yes. But remember, our fanatic craze with celebrities' personal lives led to the original harassment of Britney Spears, which led to her eventual breakdown to the point where she was landed into a conservatorship from the straw that broke the camel's back of a reporter at the gas station that couldn't care less about her feelings and just wanted to make some more money. As a society, we need to learn to pull back from, our cancel outrage culture, whether it's on the left or the right. Yes, we should press for repercussions to be placed on Will, but not based from a place of wrath or anger that then whitewashes everything that all celebrities have done from the right and the left. This, Jade and his son then at the end of the Oscars tweeted, and that's how we do it. And of course it's ambiguous. Was he speaking about the Oscars dad got or the slap? But he's a celebrity. He should know better. That is going to be tacit consent of his father committing violence. And it's going, if he might not have meant that that's him shouting to the world, like, yeah, we're in a lot of pain. We've just kind of devolved into this point where we're letting anger and emotions control ourselves. That's what I read into it, and Jaden might not have meant that, but that's what I'm reading into that. And if that's Jaden's cry of basically saying, hey, we've devolved into this point where we're letting our emotions dictate our actions to the point where we might slap someone in front of millions of people. If nothing else, does that not mean that they need help, support, healing, prayers? whatever it is. Yes, they should face justice. Yes, they should be condoned. Yes, an example should partly be made of Will. But as a society, I firmly disagree with. Just like, I did not agree with us all coming down on Kyle Rittenhouse. Yes, he was in the wrong place. Yes, he should not have killed those people, but it was in self-defense because people were shouting, "I'm going to kill you." People were attacking him, and whether or not we dislike someone should not dictate how we feel and what justice we seek, which is a whole other thing that I'll happily have in debates or whatnot. But, this was not okay. But, to me, at best, this is Jaden, kind of making a cry, saying, we seriously need, this is how we do it. If that's not sad to people out there, I don't know what is. And then obviously the next day, Will gives a general apology, jokes that Mike Spencer prior to the job, but a joke about he's still in defend wife mode about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. No, dude, you were smiling when that joke was said. You did not mind it at all. It wasn't until you saw her. That's what you couldn't bear. And it's the underlying pain that she's put you through and that she has yet to, as far as I know, take accountability for, that is pushing you to becoming a person to the opposite of what God wants you to do, to the opposite of the light that you want to be from the world. And it is irresponsible of you, partly, to let her keep shirking whatever she's done or is doing that's causing you pain. And it's also equally irresponsible of you to then unleash that pain and anger on Chris. You can't do that. I'd like to publicly applaud, and that obviously he wrote this with his publicist and his wife, but this should have just been a flat out denial of his thing. This was especially with his son's tacit consent, that's how we do things. You're now putting fuel on the fire at this point. A lot of times when we commit mistakes or crimes or misdeeds in the world, it's often what we then do that will really decide about how much of a punishment or penalty or how serious it gets. For a lot of people out there, it's not necessarily the misdeed that hurts as much as the inability to apologize, as the inability to own up to it, to try to make right, to then give them space and so on. I'm embarrassed my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. There's no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. You think. I also like to apologize to the Academy. That poor producer, man. I feel sorry for him having to be the producer over that. But again, he's the one that failed Hollywood at that moment because he should have been yanked. He claims that he tried to yank Will and Will refused. You get the police at that point. He assaulted someone. And even if charges are not filed or whatever, they have no place being in the Academy Awards, and they have no place accepting that trophy. I know it'd be hard for Will because he's still in defend wife mode, and he probably is to this day, but he has to recognize that is killing him, his career, and the message that he aspires to give the world. His behavior stained has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. He recognizes that, it's hurt his brand, his image, but not just his branding, on a monetary way, but he has done a lot of positive stuff. He has tried to be a positive light for a lot of people, including myself, and this whole thing just kind of destroys it. Then naturally, short after, and the Academy says they were looking into what they're going to do.
Yeah, Will Smith overnight submitting a letter resigning his membership in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences as the Academy considers additional disciplinary action.
He also,
and they should. And I don't know if removing him from the Academy, maybe that's appropriate, but the problem is that he's a top earner in the Screen Actors Guild. I think it might have merged. It did merge. I don't remember exactly what it's called now. It's like SAG-AFTRA, SAGFRA. I don't know. Which I used to do extra work. I should know this, but he he's a top earner, so his percentage that he pays on royalties helps support the union, helps support other actors, helps support that world. So leaving the Academy, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing. If there's a thing where he's technically removed, but he still has to pay the fees that of which they helped him become and earn, that would be more fair. He should have to be made to do, charity events. It's going to be hypocritical. It's going to be hypocritical to go to churches and stuff to speak against violence and whatnot. But our world has a lot of inspiring speakers who used to be alcoholics who now speak against alcohol. I personally don't think there's anything wrong as long as he's actually learning the lesson. And I think that's the problem a lot of people have, because as far as we know, his wife hasn't taken responsibility for cheating on him. And in his apology, it was a non-apology apology. And whenever anyone out there makes an apology, just own up to it. Don't put any excuses. It doesn't matter if you're still in defend wife mode or whatever, or bad marriage for life, or whatever that is that they said exactly on their Red Table Talks. And people are correct to be outraged, to be upset, but it is not about a joke. It is not about, was that joke too much? It wasn't. He was okay with it. He himself in that moment wasn't justifying that joke. He himself in that moment, it's not about that. What it is about is particularly he and his wife not handling their own pain, their own issues, their own problems, to the point that it then affects everyone else. And as a celebrity, you don't have the option to skirt responsibility. You don't have the option to take unusual solutions. You don't have the option to, in the case of his wife, I believe it appears that she's at best, if she's taken on a healer or a therapist, at best they're like a fake healer who has not been very effective in helping her, it seems, really own up, heal from her own insecurities, which is, the biggest part of the problem. Obviously, there could be more at play. I'm not a psychologist, but obviously, this is more than a slap. Obviously, we as a society don't have to fall to this level. I don't want to say to Will's level, because I do not feel this moment defines him. I do not think someone's crime defines them for life. I do not think, our diseases define us. I do not think any of that defines us. And I think it is not only up to Will, but to us as a society, to stop skirting our issues, that which angers us, that which stresses us, and to not seek to resolve it with violence or anger, as, I think it was like 20 to 36% of Republicans said they now need to seek violence to handle things. Violence is never the answer. They'll just invoke, the military and martial law, which then it'll be claimed that was a conspiracy theory all along. Violence is never the answer. We need to get better at being honest with what pains and stresses us, and get better at talking with each other, not trying to blame each other. Like Ben Shapiro trying to blame this on Ukraine, or, making an analogy to Ukraine or whatever, crazy stuff like that. That's not helpful. As a society, whether or not you're on the left or the right, all that matters going forward is simply, if for nothing else, that we kind of learn from their inaction on their own pain, their inability to deal with their own pain, and recognizing how that then leads to an explosion, right? So I'm hoping to create a show, something like Talks Across the Aisle, where hopefully I can help sort of bridge gaps between left and right, which a lot of people believe is impossible, but I don't. But yeah, I just had to give this video, this take, because, man, all the bad takes out there are just driving me crazy. Deep breaths, right? But yeah, so I hope this helped to shed a little bit of light on things. I'm sure there's still a lot of stuff out there that will kind of like makes things more clear. I personally do think that his award should be rescinded and given to the next runner-up. I do believe that he should be made to do charity work, and I do believe that he and his family should take an honest look at what causes this kind of toxicity in families that we saw from that Red Table Talk to become better researchers of stress, of anger, of domestic violence, of pain that affects us all. And I hope they take that path instead of trying to make excuses or just pretending it never happened. That's what I hope. Will, if you're out there, if you happen to listen to this or be one of the 5 viewers I have, I hope you take a lot of this to heart. My heart goes out to you. It's clear you're in a lot of pain. This is not you, man. And to Will directly and to a lot of people out there, like, you try to carry the world on your shoulders. You try to neglect your own self-care, your own healing, your own needs, your own pain, but it shows, man. It showed in the Red Table Talk 2 years ago, and it's only gotten tougher since. You cannot be there for people. You cannot be a light for others if you're letting your angers, your pains, and stuff build up. You're not carrying the world on your shoulders at that point. Anyone would allow them to slowly becomes a cautionary tale. Obviously I could go on, but I just hope out of all this that hopefully we can learn some actual lessons. Hopefully we can learn how to maybe even become better people ourselves out of this. And hopefully we can become a little more inspired to be less interested in bloodshed, in cancel culture, and in blaming and making excuses, but to become actually interested in dealing with the real troubles that affect us all equally. Godspeed.